Hang on. I gotta check and make sure the audio is right. Nope. Gotta switch it over to the little, let's see. Okay. Here we go. So, this is the so-called ACE Theological YouTube channel where we discuss all things ACE. All things theological. No. Right now we're going to talk about the GAPS diet. I think I'm jammed up here. Now I'm back. All right. So, if you like this, like it and share it. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Leave comments. You know, what we're going to talk about is the GAPS diet. And because there ain't no need to be so ill. Yes, you are going to die because, you know, Romans 5:12 reveals that mortality has passed through into all mankind thanks to our father Adam. Isn't that funny? Just call him Father Adam because we so often say Father Abraham. And I don't remember anybody saying Father Adam. But Adam is more or less, he's the progenitor of the race. Anyway, so hang on, let me pull up a screen here because I want to show you something and talk about something. Okay, let me expand it a bit to fill in the screen. So this thing called the GAPS diet is very much like the PALEO diet and very much like the grandfather of the PALEO diet called the caveman diet. So what's going on here is the idea that certain foods cause a lot of problems in your gut. In the GAPS diet, it's a particular thing. G stands for gut, and I forgot what APS stands for. You can look it up. But there are some people have done a lot of research, namely a Russian scientist named Natasha McBride. She's the one who's out there yakking about the GAPS diet. Now, I don't know everything about it, but I do know that it looks very much like the caveman diet, which I got into some 12 years ago. And I got into the caveman diet because it doesn't require the feeling of being on a diet. You can eat as much crap as you want, just as long as you don't eat the high carbs, the sugars, you know, the processed food, because the caveman did not eat that processed crap. The caveman ate meat and the fatty organs and some vegetables and some fruit because they were like on the run all the time, right? Either chasing food or running from being food. That's the theory. And so they were not farmers. And so farmed food, like wheat, is full of problems, right? So anyway, one thing, the reason I wanted you to see this is on this GAPS diet thing, at the bottom of this, it says real food for autism, right down here at the bottom. And there are a lot of kids that are autistic now. Why are they autistic? Well, we can't really get into that because it's a protected industry. But way back, way back, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the autism rate was like 1 in 10,000 kids were autistic, and now it's moving closer to 1 in 25, and it keeps moving. And some people say we're going to get to the point where 1 in 3 kids are going to be autistic. That's going to be a friggin' nightmare. To have to deal with this crap, there are even, right now, in dealing with autism. Hi, Michael Knotts. Nice to see you. In dealing with autism, it's not very well reported, but, an autistic kid is hard to deal with. And so it leads to divorce. Let's say the father walks out and leaves the mother to deal with this kid who's constantly banging his head on the wall, literally banging his head on the wall, and screaming and screaming and screaming. Fucking hard to deal with. And how did it happen? I have 2 family members that became autistic the damn day after they got the vaccination. And so no, but you can't say it was the vaccination. No, it's something else. Don't blame those. Don't blame the big corporation that supplied the vaccination. But look at this. It turns out that this GAPS diet seems to have a good effect on these autistic kids. And guess what? It has a good effect even if you're not autistic, because you're eating stuff that you're supposed to eat and you're not eating stuff that you're not supposed to eat. And my familiarity with the paleo diet, the caveman diet, tells me that this looks very, very similar. Because in the caveman paleo diet universe, you don't want to eat processed foods that come out of a factory. Cavemen didn't eat factory processed foods, and they didn't eat grains. They couldn't be bothered by plucking and harvesting wheat and boiling it down, wheat and rice and barley and millet and any kind of grains. That was too much work. They had to be on the move, right? They would harvest a cow or a buffalo or maybe a dinosaur, and they would eat the fatty organs first, like the Eskimos are famous for capturing seals and eating the fatty organs first, and the Eskimos would feed the lean meat to their huskies. So you look on this side over here, this foods to avoid. And I don't know the scientific reasons these GAPS people tell you to avoid agave syrup. What? Is that a problem? But it's concentrated sugars. I don't know what the problem is with acidophilus milk. I don't know, but whatever. But I do see that they tell you to avoid buckwheat, bulgur. That's a grain. Some cheeses, chickpeas. That's kind of, corn. That's not on the list. And even over in the caveman diet, it's not on the list. And potatoes are not on the list either. Let's see if it's on this one. Yep, potatoes. That's not on the list. You want to avoid those things because the caveman did not eat potatoes. They couldn't be bothered with digging potatoes out. They were on the run, right? Ketchup, commercially made. Jams, jellies. So there's a variation on this caveman diet, this paleo diet, that you might be interested in, and it's called the Whole30 diet. Hang on, I'm trying to move the screen around so I can see what's going on. It's called the Whole30 diet, okay? And so what the Whole30 diet is, for 30 days, you only eat whole foods, no processed foods. And the Whole30 diet is not to lose weight. In fact, on the Whole30 plan, you're not even to get on the scale for 30 days because you're not measuring your weight. You are learning how foods make you feel. So for 30 days, you only eat whole foods, nothing processed, and no honey, no sugar, no sodas, no grains, just vegetables, some vegetables from some fruit, and meat and fatty meat, fat. Anyway, so after the Whole30 diet program, so what you're doing is for 30 days, you only eat this way, right? So then your body gets acclimated to this whole business, the whole food business. And then on day 31, you can reintroduce your old favorite food, whether it was Doritos or Pop-Tarts or pizza or spaghetti, whatever. You reintroduce one of those foods at a time just to see how it makes you feel. And a lot of people, you can do YouTube search on Whole30, and there's a lot of videos on people who now swear by the Whole30 diet. And it looks a lot like the SCAPS diet. And it looks a lot like the PALEO guys are arguing for, and the old caveman diet guys. So you're not going to starve yourself with this. You eat as much as you want. You just don't eat the condensed sugars, processed foods, and fast food, blah, blah, blah. You're eating whole foods. Anyway, so the people who do the Whole30, they are amazed that on day 31, when they eat a big bag of Doritos, they feel lousy. Oh my God, it sits on your stomach like cement. Or Pop-Tarts, or, whatever the deal is that you love to eat and drink. And I learned about the Whole30 diet last year when my daughter came in to visit for the holidays. And man, she looked good. She lost weight. Her skin was beautiful. Her hair was beautiful. Her eyes were clear. I said, "What are you doing? What's different?" She said she went on the Whole30 diet and was really swearing by it. And so the Whole30 diet, again, it's not to lose weight. It's just to learn how you feel, clearly after you acclimate to whole foods and then go back to the processed foods one at a time so that you get a clue. And so my grandson and my nephew both became autistic the day after they got their shot. And it was some serious shit. And so these GAPS people with this GAPS diet, it seems to me, if you listen to Natasha McBride, the scientist who promotes this GAPS thing, that she's got reasons why she recommends these things and recommends the avoidance of these things over here. Beans, oh, you can't eat beans? So in my experimenting with foods like this, I started eating caveman diet style crap about 12 years ago. And I lost a lot of weight. I feel a lot better. I've lost my arthritis that I was dealing with, and I think I lost around 50 pounds. But I tell you, one thing I noticed that when you eat these foods that you're supposed to avoid, you will fart a lot. So we can call this affectionately the fartless diet. And when you're eating over on this side of the wall, these things, you won't fart as much. So we'll call it the fartless diet. Anyway, so hang on, let me, there's I did a search for the GAPS diet because I don't know. Actually, I haven't listened very much to Natasha McBride. I heard a half a speech here and a half a speech there, and but my little darling is all about Natasha McBride. She kind of swears by her, and so I did a Bing search, and here's what I found. Oh, let's see if I can make it bigger. So it has quite a following anyway. They've got books now. And oh yeah, thank you. You're so charming. I fully expected that. If only you had a free will, you would do other things than and fool me. So let's see if I can make it bigger so you can see it. This is just a Bing search on this this GAPS diet thing. So they've got books and they've got a theory. A healthy and resilient gut microbiome is essential to immune function and overall health. So the GAPS, again, the G stands for gut, and I don't know what the rest of it is. But the GAPS diet is designed to reduce inflammation, support the gut lining, and restore microbial diversity through dietary intervention and detoxification. Anyway, so I don't know if you've got health problems, but everything you stick into your mouth has some effect, whether you know the effect or not, or can put it together or not. So if you just put half a teaspoon of rat poison in a glass of water and drink it every day, it's going to have some effect. If you put a lot of rat poison in, you'd see the effect right away. But if you just put a little bit of rat poison in your body every day, it takes a while. DB Cisco. He's on the craps diet, not the GAPS diet. Lord have mercy. So there you go. That's all I wanted to say. Come on in if you want to say something. What's this about? I survived 50 years on junk food. Many my age watch what they ate and are long dead. Yeah. But let's see if you can survive 95 years on junk food. Oh yeah, there's your little old entryway. You hop over to the old folks home and you'll see that there are not many people there who are way overweight. In my life, I'm about 70 now. All the guys who are way overweight, they live to maybe 60, 65. And all the skinny guys and gals, they lived into their 80s, by and large. And even scientists, years ago, scientists have observed that fat rats do not live as long as skinny rats. St. Tommy, if you want to go in, show me that it's you. Otherwise, I'll just assume that it's our favorite troll. Oh, hi, Greg. Welcome.
Hey, Ace. um, I'm glad that I was brought into awareness of this diet because it says it will naturally help many of the problems I've been suffering from for my whole life.
Uh-huh.
So, how long have you been on it?
Well, I haven't done exactly gaps. I've been doing what I affectionately call the caveman diet, or trying to, for about 12 years.
For 12 years.
And they're very similar, though. They're very similar.
Is the diet that you're on is like a GAPS diet with some things that you like to eat?
Well, I cheat too, but
Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay. Well, every diet needs to have a little room to cheat. You got to have some room.
mhm.
But I like what this looks like because many of the medical conditions that it says it'll benefit are things that I've been suffering my whole life, and nothing has helped other than big pharma. And I'm just really dead set against big pharma. They,
Right.
so I'm glad to see that there's an opportunity to deal with these things naturally, and I look forward to trying. I've already begun.
Uh-huh.
They say it's going to take a few days to really start getting into the swing of it, and I'm not pushing it. I'm just letting go and letting God take it.
Hi, Michael.
Hey,
Hi,
Mike.
guys. Greg.
Hey, Mike.
Well, how long I can hang? We got a couple of grandkids here, and it gets pretty crazy. But this is an interesting. There's a lot of good information in this diet stuff, and don't consider it a diet. Consider it a lifestyle.
Mhm.
Is what it amounts to. So
What got me interested in it, of course, I was overweight, and when you look in the mirror every day, you can't really tell that you're packing on the pounds because you only pack them on 1 ounce at a time, and so your eyes deceive you.
right,
You can't tell that you're swollen up like you've got a body full of poison, like a tick bit you or something. You just your eyes adjust to it, your mind adjusts to it. You tell yourself a story. Oh, that's me. I'm just getting older. Whatever you tell yourself anyway. So you
right,
can't see it unless somebody takes a picture of you from behind, and you happen to see yourself on their camera phone, and you go, "What the hell is that? Me? Is that me? Holy smoke!" And my come to Jesus moment was 12 years ago. I was out on the back porch, and it was early summer. I had my shoes off, and I looked down at my feet, and it scared the crap out of me because those fat feet were not my feet. I
right.
was unfamiliar with those fat feet, and that scared the crap out of me. And that's when I learned about the caveman diet. And the idea I loved about the caveman diet was that it was not a starvation diet. You just eat as much as you want, but get rid of that crap like Pop Tarts and spaghetti,
Yeah,
etc. Right? And that pleased me that it wasn't anything to do with starvation and making yourself feel hungry.
yeah.
So
But
I
I got
started.
to admit, when you told me about this diet, you said if I ate a bowl of it, I'd feel full. And I've got to admit, you were right. I ate a bowl of it and felt full until I
Just
decided it's time to eat again. But I didn't. I wasn't hungry. I didn't have to eat.
what was it? What was it? You say you ate a bowl
Uh,
of it.
I made some beef broth. As a matter of fact, this is the synergy that convinced me to try this diet. Is I was making beef broth the day before you told me about this diet, and the
Mm-hmm.
day you told me about the diet, the first thing is to make beef broth.
Uh-huh.
So I saw the synergy of God trying to show me something I needed to do to help straighten out problems I've been suffering. So I've committed myself to getting on this and letting Him bring me into a more sound physical shape through food
That's pretty
or the
cool.
lack thereof.
Chainsaw Stanky loves his spaghetti too much to give it up. Well, sir, that's just fine. So anyway, I discovered this thing called the caveman diet about 12 years ago. I inched my way over into it. My I of course lost some weight. Had to punch in like 8 new holes into my leather belt. My arthritis disappeared little by little in my elbows and my knees. Um, I felt swishing and could hear swishing in my arteries, my blood veins. When I first woke up in the morning, I could hear that swishing because I knew that told me I was clogged up and maybe even close to a stroke 12 years ago. And that has disappeared. So a lot of good things will happen if you pay attention to this stuff. And I'm telling you, the foods to avoid are things that are dense and clog you up and make your body go nuts. Oh, during my days of trying, see this oats are problem or in the foods to avoid. In my days of experimenting with things to eat and not to eat, I learned that oats give you a lot of mucus. It gives me a lot of mucus anyway. So I had to cut out oats. Anyway, so. And it's not that these things are spiritual matter. It's just that, why would you want to?
Horses, and horses have a lot of problem with passing the wind also, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you feed a bunch of oats to the horse and they will fart a lot. Yes, they will.
Yeah, they do. We feed grain to cows to fatten them up. So that ought to say something.
That's right. The grain-fed cows do fatten up, and that's what the prodigal son experienced when the father came home. In the King James, it says, when the prodigal son came home, the father said, "Kill the fatted calf." But the concordant literal New Testament says, "Kill the grain-fed calf." So you want to fatten up, baby? Eat a lot of grain stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, "Is coffee allowed?" And so I'm looking on here, and yes, it says that coffee, instant or coffee substitutes are to be avoided. It doesn't say real coffee; it just says instant coffee or coffee substitutes. It might mean coffee instant. No, it doesn't say and. It says coffee, comma, instant or substitute. So I'm not going to give up coffee. So I'm glad it says instant coffee. I'll gladly get rid of that crap. That even tastes yucky.
Well, I plan to try it, and I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. If others look at what it can do naturally to problems that they have, they may want to change over to it also.
Wild Eden, what is haggis? Is that a bunch of fatty organs?
Haggis, I think, I'm not sure, but I think that was where they used to stuff a sheep's stomach and something like sausage and cook it in that. I think it had something to do with stuffing the sheep's stomach and cooking it. Haggis. Hey,
Yeah,
Google knows. Google could tell us.
Of course, yeah, but I would rather ask Wild Eden than ask Google.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so Alta, let's see. You can follow this. Let me post this this list in. There you go. That's the list. You can follow this, but you'd probably do just as well to go on YouTube and listen to Natasha McBride preach the gospel of the GAPS diet and why she's so on about it. Haggis is made from offal. I just clicked on this as I saw you were talking about foods for autism. Oh my God, my tablet isn't charged up right now, so I won't be able to join the discussion, but I'd like to join later on. Okay. That autism thing is just getting crazy because It used to be a rare thing, and now it seems like in every neighborhood there's somebody who's suffering from autism. Every 10 blocks, every 10 houses in a block, that somebody's got autism. And share my thoughts as a person with Asperger's syndrome that is homeless and recently certified holistic health coach. Opal is kidneys, liver, and pancreas. All right. So in this, I don't know if it's exactly recommended in the Gap Spot diet, but I can tell you in the caveman paleo arena, the fatty organs are to be preferred as opposed to lean meat. When I was first learning about the so-called caveman diet, I was learning from one of the gals who would write articles about her experience with the caveman diet over on LouRockwell.com, and she told about this is a story. This is how I think it's an interesting story. She told about how she would bring her own lunch to her office where she worked. She was a CPA, and she brought her own lunch. And on this particular day, she brought lamb. And to prepare the lamb for her lunch, she put some butter in the microwave and smothered her lamb with butter, right? And the people in the office said, "How can you put so much butter on your lunch and still be so skinny as you are?" And that to me was a cute story, that, because turns out that the fatty organ meat, the avocado, the bacon, the butter, that doesn't cause you to be fat. It's the dense carbs that actually cause you to be fat. And when you eat fat, the proper kind of fat and oils, it releases a hormone in your stomach called CCK, and CCK sends a message up to your brain that tells you that you're full, and so you'll actually eat less if you smother the lamb with butter. And if you're going to cheat and have potatoes, smother the dang thing with butter, because if you don't put butter on the potato, you are still hungry, because it didn't have that effect of releasing CCK, the hormone CCK, into your stomach to tell your brain that you're full. So if you put butter on the potato, you'll eat one potato and feel just satisfied. But if you don't put any butter on it, you'll have to have 3 potatoes, because you just won't feel full, and then you'll get so full of that starch that it'll tend to make fat and give you belly fat. Opal is supposed to be healthier than the more expensive cuts of meat. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm learning. That's what I'm experiencing. Kidneys, liver, pancreas. But we live in a world where the wheat farmers have somehow bribed the congressman to create a government message of the food pyramid, right? And on the bottom of the pyramid of the government's preaching of how you should eat, it says you mostly should eat wheat. And up here on the very top of the pyramid is fat. Don't eat a lot of fat, but eat mostly things that are made of wheat, like cereal and bread and buns, hamburger buns. Anyway, so 12 years ago, when I was first investigating the caveman diet, those caveman boys and girls like marksdailyapple.com, they said just turn the food pyramid, the government approved official pyramid, turn it upside down, and then you'll be much better off to eat that way, instead of the official lying government food pyramid. Sure there. Come on in, Wild Eden. Oh, that's not the right one. There, that's the right one. Avoid wheat, barley, rye, oats. Yeah, that's what it says. Avoid balsamic vinegar. I don't know why that is. And you can, if you really care, you can listen to Natasha McBride and her scientific reasonings for this list of do's and don'ts. Quinoa. Oh, that's supposed to be a healthy grain, but all the grains are to be avoided because grains are bird food. And rice, rye, that's all bird food. Spelt, soy, bird food. Wheat, bird food. Wheat germ, bird food. Wheat powder or liquid, bird food. Oh, it has yams on here. Now, I would cheat on yams. Cream of tartar, who wants that anyway? Corn syrup, now that is gross. Corn starch, corn, cooking oils. Oh, but what is approved? Herbal teas, grapefruit, coffee. Oh, so coffee is allowed. Freshly made, weak, not instant. Okay, yeah, now we're getting a clue. The approved side is coconut oils, cherries, cherimoya, peas, parsley, celery, broccoli. Looks like they're leaning on vegetables more than meat. Oh, here we go. Eggs, fresh frozen fish, game, quail, pigeon, or pheasants. Scotch occasionally? Okay, I'm in. Various cheeses. Oh, here we go. Meats. Beef, lamb, pork, fresh or frozen. Melons, mushroom. Well, anyway, it's a pretty interesting subject, I think, because, you know, there are a lot of illnesses that we don't really consider illnesses. We consider them annoyances, right? Oh, I've got arthritis. Well, what causes the arthritis? Once I discovered the caveman diet, and I learned that the caveman people were saying that wheat basically causes arthritis, and I accidentally stumbled on that episode on the PBS show about the Iceman, the 5,000-year-old man that they discovered when the ice kind of melted up from the Alps in the Swiss mountains, right? They brought this Iceman into town, did a autopsy on him, and they were shocked. Oh my God, he's got arthritis. And they kept doing the autopsy. Oh my God, look at this. He's got heart disease. And the caveman people were saying, yeah, wheat will give you heart disease. And they said, oh, you know, every time they sliced into something to examine him, this caveman, he wasn't a caveman. He was just a 5,000-year-old man. They were surprised that he had like modern day diseases. And finally, they couldn't find his stomach because when he died, he laid over top of a boulder and it pushed his stomach up into a weird place. They finally found his stomach toward the end of the documentary. They cut it open and it was filled with wheat. And they said, oh, look at this. He must have been a farmer. So at first I was thinking it contradicted what I had just learned and studied about the caveman diet. And lo and behold, it actually confirmed what I was studying about the caveman diet. That he was a farmer from 5,000 years ago. He wasn't truly a caveman. And he had a belly full of wheat and the attendant diseases that we have, heart disease and arthritis, etc. Traditional Scottish food is basically the food of the poor folks. No Nothing is wasted. Perfect. Come on in, Wild Eden. I want to talk to you. I like talking to you. So, David James, you say quinoa is fine, but it's on the list of foods to avoid, and it is a grain. So I'm tending to think I want to avoid it because I'm trying to not eat grains. I don't know exactly all that there is to know about the GAPS diet, but it seems to be very much in line with what I learned 12 years ago about the caveman, so-called caveman diet. So there you have it. Organic, real food for autism. Well, sir, howdy. You may speak. You are Wild Eden. No? Hello.
Hi, sorry. I just have to nip off for a quick comfort break. I'll be back in a minute.
You tickle me.
I'll be back just in a minute.
Okay. I'm not looking at the GAPS diet. I'm going for my training as a holistic health coach. Yeah. I can see that you would argue, or that the holistic people would argue, that quinoa, David James, that quinoa is more acceptable than just plain old wheat. And I bet that the quinoa producers don't use Roundup as much as the wheat producers are currently using Roundup. And I don't know if you guys know this, but they are now, farmers everywhere, all the way from America down to Argentina, are using Roundup because it's a desiccant. It starves the plant of water. And so they spray Roundup all over the wheat harvest to get it to ripen up on the very same day, all of it unified. And so a lot of the wheat and a lot of our foods now have a considerable amount of glyphosates in them. And from what I understand, the body sees that glyphosate when you eat it. It sees it as glycine, and it starts building cells out of the glyphosate. But it still has that tendency to starve the cell of water, because that's what glyphosate does. And as I know the story of glyphosate, it's just a junior version of Agent Orange. And we're eating that crap.
Hi,
Agent
I'm
Orange.
back.
Hey,
I'm
welcome
back.
back. Welcome back. So we want to hear.
So, Acer, is this GAP diet, or is this for your health? Are you trying to improve your health? Is this why
Yes,
we're...
yeah, right,
yes,
right,
yeah,
right.
good. It does look basically healthy, although I'm not so sure about the dairy products.
Well,
buttermilk, yogurt. I'm not so sure that's so good, but you know.
what do they say about buttermilk and yogurt?
Well, basically, we're consuming something that's just meant for baby cows, if you know what I mean.
Right. So that's what you say. What did
a lot
do the GAPS people
who
recommend
are
buttermilk?
lactose intolerant. I'm not totally familiar with the GAPS diet. When I first saw the title of your stream, I thought it was something along the lines of God of the GAPS. But I'm not familiar with what does GAPS stand for?
G stands for gut, and
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
I don't know what
Okay.
the APS stands for. I'm not
Okay.
I'm not a good student of Natasha McBride and her GAPS diet, but
Okay.
from my looking over the fence, it looks very much like the PALEO diet and very much like
Yes.
the caveman diet. So
Yes.
And they,
Although I don't think cavemen had vodka. Which is on the diet.
well,
Although
you
it does
gotta,
say very
it's,
occasionally.
it's important to cheat sometime.
I'm sure cavemen had their own version of like fruit that had fermented.
Right. But from what I understand about the GAPS diet, GAPS,
Yeah,
they're all about healing the gut. And their
yeah.
theory is that the gut, a healthy gut,
Mm-hmm.
is the foundation to health all around the body altogether.
I can believe that. Yeah,
Right.
I can buy into that. Yeah.
And she, from what I understand, Natasha McBride has a great track record of taking autistic kids and within a short period of time, by giving them this diet, the GAPS diet, they become healed up and normal again. And so this is
Certainly worth trying then.
right. And so even if you're not autistic, I can testify that my movement toward this diet has helped me a lot.
Good,
And I
good.
may be alive today thanks to moving toward this diet, even though I didn't know about the GAPS
Yeah.
until recently.
Well, I'm at a point where I'm wanting to improve my health as well, because I know my diet's quite poor at the moment because I tend to rely on ready meals that I just pop into the microwave
Right. Okay. Bad girl.
for
You're going to get a
convenience.
spanking.
Please.
Bad girl.
Yes, it's. I know it's not good.
Okay. So here I am, 70 years old or so. And I, every once in a while, I before the internet, I used to read the newspaper, not even one newspaper. I used to read 3 or 4 newspapers a day and several magazines. You know, I would subscribe to many magazines in a month, a voracious reader. And over the many years, of course, the newspapers have to fill their pages with something. And over the many years of reading, they would come up with a story where they would interview the oldest person alive in America, the oldest man alive, the oldest woman alive. And it was always a shock because we're trained to think that you need a low-fat diet. And invariably, these old people, 115 years old or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they would brag that they ate chicken skins
Mm-hmm.
and smoked 10 cigars a day.
And
so you
washed it all down with vodka.
Yeah, that too. But when you read these articles about these old people, the thing that they all had in common was that they would brag on eating fatty foods like chicken skins.
Yeah.
And it was just the opposite of what we were told in popular culture, that you need a low-fat diet, otherwise you'll get fat. And these old skinny people, they would eat a lot of fat. And so I just, after reading about 10 of them over the course of 10 years, because every year they would have a new article about the oldest person alive.
Yeah.
10 cigars a day, a shot of whiskey before they went to bed.
Yeah, I've heard those stories as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would, well, what do you eat? Oh, I eat chicken skins and haggis, or, I love liver. I love to eat liver, whatever they said,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it was just the opposite of the low-fat diet crap that we're spoon-fed.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't think fat's wrong per se.
David James, Natural Cures. Isn't that by that marketer? I forgot what his name was, but I have not read that book.
In the UK, we've got a tradition that when somebody reaches 100 years old, to get a personal letter from the Queen.
Really?
But I'm thinking the Queen must be approaching 100 years old herself. So I'm wondering if she's got to write a letter to herself.
Oh, yeah. I once read a story about a fellow who was on a ship with the Queen.
Oh, yes.
and he was introduced to her. And this fellow had the balls to ask her, "What exactly is it do you do?" And she gave him the evil eye.
Oh,
That was all.
yeah.
What exactly is it you do?
I don't actually have anything against the royal family. It's just part of the British tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I've had an argument with atheists actually, who try and argue with me that Britain isn't a democracy; it's a theocracy because we've got the Queen, the royal family. We've had the royal family, I think, since ever there's been a nation called Britain or England. But we've also got a democratic system alongside it.
Mm-hmm. Which is worse, democracy or
It seems to
monarchy?
in Britain, I think it's got quite a good relationship between both.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd be sorry to see the royal family go.
Oh yeah.
In a way, they do provide a public service.
There's a guy over on Lou Rockwell, I forgot his name, some good thinker, and he wrote a long essay on why monarchies are better than democracies. And his argument boiled down to if you have a king or a queen, they'll tend to want the taxes to keep coming in, right? Because they live off the tax money. And so they don't want to hurt their income stream by totally punishing the people.
Can I go to the park for like an hour on the bike?
Less. And he argued that, yes, he argued that democracies tend to fall apart because this guy gets elected and he doesn't care about the long-term returns on his bad decisions and laws that he passes.
Yes, that's true.
He'll just abuse the hell out of the whole system and make a name for himself and collect a lot of money and rig the system in his favor. And then he's out of there in 2 to 4 years, and so he doesn't have to reap the results of his bad decisions. So this guy made the argument that monarchs are actually better than democracies.
Yeah, the Queen's more of I suppose, a figurehead, for ceremonial openings of Parliament, and she'll rubber stamp the laws that are passed in Parliament by the government, which is elected by the people. So it does seem to, over the hundreds of years, it seems to work. And sometimes I think it works even better than the American system. Although, having said all that, the House of Lords, which is supposed to be the counterbalance to the elected parliamentary members, is made up of something like 26 bishops.
Catholic bishops or Church of England bishops?
It must be Church of England.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to look it up. I don't know the details of the House of Lords, but it is a complex system to get your head around, for sure.
Well,
anyway, we've gone away from the subject of diets. I can't remember how we got here.
I'm not married.
I can't remember why we started talking about the Queen.
I'm not married to the diet subject. I like talking to you, period.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
So, it seems to me, from my observation of history, that there's not really a dime's worth of difference between governments, whether it's a communist government, a fascist government, a democracy, a royalty. It's all, some dudes at the top and everybody else at the bottom.
Yes. Yes.
And if they can trick you into thinking you voted for this, all the better for them, right?
Yep. Yep. What do you
Last
think
year,
about what's happening in Afghanistan at the moment?
I think it'll be forgettable.
Yeah, but what really shocked me was watching the news today, and I saw these poor Afghans clinging onto the planes that were leaving to
Mhm.
try and escape the Taliban and falling off the planes while their president escaped. And their president escaped, saying he left the country because he didn't want bloodshed. And I'm sure he just meant his own bloodshed. So he's sitting
Exactly.
cozy. I think it's in Central Asia, while his people are desperate to get away from the Taliban, desperate enough to cling on to moving planes that are taking off. And that I find that quite upsetting.
Well,
So I wonder what's going to happen next.
it was very much that picturesque when the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam. There were people hanging on the last helicopters that left off the roof of the official buildings in Saigon, and they had to drop off before they died. But so people were afraid of the communists coming in, taking over Vietnam after we pulled out. But look what happened. The communists, if you can say that the communists took over Vietnam, they more or less behave themselves because they've got to live with everybody anyway. So that's why I say it doesn't look like there's a dime's worth of difference between one government and another. So if the Taliban does take over Afghanistan, what? They're not going to kill everybody. Maybe just a few people as a show trial or an example. And then basically.
They don't have a great record for human rights, to be fair.
Well, neither does the U.S. government.
Especially when it comes to women. I mean, the women are off the streets again.
Is that a bad thing?
Of course it's a bad thing.
Okay.
Why should women hide? Why are women less equal than men?
I don't know. Is that what the Taliban says?
Yes, that's what the Quran says. That's also what the Bible says. So I'm against that.
You are, huh? Well, sir.
I think being on YouTube has made me take more of a stand and a position on things than I would have been bothered about before.
Uh-huh.
And one of them standing up for women's rights. There's a lot of misogyny on YouTube.
You know what a misogynist is, don't you?
Someone who hates people of another gender.
No.
Usually men against women. There's a lot of hatred from men against women in all religions. Women have been persecuted throughout the centuries.
Let me tell you.
Women haven't been allowed to have an education. It's only relatively recently in Britain that women have been allowed to go to universities. And I think that's appalling.
So I want to tell you the true definition of misogynist. You ready?
Go ahead. Listening.
It's men who hate women as much as women hate each other.
That's not true.
Do women hate each other?
No.
Uh-oh. I must have met the wrong batch of women then.
They were probably Christian women. Sorry, I'm just being cheeky. Sorry, I do apologize.
Oh, no. Don't apologize. I like it. So,
There's going to be a lot of Afghanistan refugees over the next coming days and weeks.
Where will they go?
The United Nations have told every country to take them.
And why would people
Take
listen
them
to the
in.
United Nations?
Why shouldn't they listen to the United Nations?
Oh, isn't that an organization of criminals? I forgot.
It's supposed to be an organization of nations.
Oh, I see. But I thought I read somewhere that 90% of the members of the United Nations were just criminal dictators.
Well, it's usually the Western nations like the US,
Okay, yeah.
Europe, Britain, and Eastern nations.
Mm-hmm.
So you're calling yourself, well, the states, criminals then?
Yes, I do call them criminals. And they have a long track record of abusive behavior.
In what way?
In
Don't
what
they
way?
stand up for human rights? No.
Well-
What's abusive about standing up for human rights?
Well, there was this little batch of states called the Southern States, and nobody stood up for their human rights. They were slaughtered brutally.
I could say the same about Hungary in 1956.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we can say-
my father was Hungarian.
Uh-huh.
The Russians took over Hungary in 1956, while
Mhm.
the world's attention was focused on the Suez Canal. My father and his brother were in the Hungarian resistance force, and his brother was shot and executed.
Oh,
And my
no.
father was a refugee and came over to Scotland and met my mother. So I'm actually half Hungarian. But it's not just,
I could hear it in
it's
your
just
voice.
not, it's not just the southern states of America that have been shafted, for want of a better word.
Well, and then there's the Plains Indians. They were pretty shafted, and the Cherokee Indians were pretty shafted.
Oh yes, definitely.
And then
yes,
the so-called Philippine Wars, that didn't look so good. If anybody even knows what the Philippine Wars are.
No, I have to admit, I'm
And then-
ignorant of that one.
So I'll tell you a story that you won't find in the history books because I learned it from a family in California that had relatives that were involved in this. So in the old cowboy days, there's plenty of movies about this thing in the American West called the Range Wars. Okay, and so the mythology of the Range Wars is that the cattle guys hated the sheep guys, and so there would be range wars between the cattlemen and the sheep guys fighting each other. And they made several movies about the cattle guys shooting it out with the sheep guys. And I mean, it shows up in, I think, a John Wayne movie and some I can't remember any of the other actors, but it shows up in even the cowboy shows like Rawhide and Lancer and maybe even Gunsmoke. But it's a common theme in Western culture. And so this family I met years ago in the 80s, the grandfather of the family said, "Hey, you heard about the Range Wars? Let me tell you what it's all about." So here's the deal with the Range Wars. And it includes the Philippine Wars. That's why I bring it up, because you reminded me of it. And we love our stories, right? So here, this guy tells me that that the Range Wars got started, the so-called Range Wars, because this guy's great-grandfather was a newspaperman in the cowboy days in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma area. He was a newspaperman. And he did not like it that the cattlemen were not paying their fair share of taxes. You know, it was like famous that they were getting rich off of cattle and not paying taxes. So he started writing articles about these evil cattlemen not paying their taxes, and he was going to do something about it. Well, the cattlemen went to this newspaperman's office and drug him out in the dirt street and beat him to death with 2x4s. And his two sons, 10 years old, 11 years old, saw it. They saw these men beating their dad to death. And of course, they were smart enough to keep their mouths shut. And the boys were shipped off far away to be raised by an aunt. And when the boys turned 19, 20 years old, they came back to this panhandle area of Texas with pretty nice rifles.
Yeah.
And they went around and picked off every damn cattleman that was involved in killing their father. And they got away with it. Nobody saw them. And they disappeared. They disappeared and joined the military in order to make sure they disappeared, so they wouldn't be around for anybody to do any investigation on them anyway. So that's how the so-called range wars got started, because nobody knew who killed these cattlemen. They just assumed.
I see.
They just assumed it was the sheep guys, but no, it was these two boys, 10 and 11, who came back for revenge, right?
Yeah.
And when these boys joined the military, they were shipped off. This is 1900, 1910 or so. I forgot the exact dates, but they were shipped off to the Philippines and they were involved in the Philippine Wars. And so what this old guy told me was that the Philippine Wars happened because the Philippines were a U.S. territory, and we weren't collecting enough taxes from the Philippines. And the Philippine government boys and girls said, don't blame us. It's the people in the interior of the Philippines that aren't paying us the taxes. So, of course, we can't pay you any taxes. So the U.S. military went into the jungles of the Philippines and butchered everybody. They only had machetes to fight with, but the U.S. military had heavy armory, right? And so it was just a bloodbath, right? All over the Philippines not paying enough taxes to the U.S. Treasury. And so what stopped the Philippine Wars, according to the story he told me, was that the congressmen's wives were out on the docks one day taking a stroll, and the congressmen's wives said, "Oh, what's in these containers?" Well, before that, Congress had said to the military generals in the Philippines, what are we getting for our money? You keep wanting more money for this war. What are we getting for our money? So the smart-ass military generals packed up a bunch of Philippine skulls, crates and crates of them, and shipped them back to the docks in Washington, D.C. area, so that they could see what they're getting for their money, right? And so the congressman's wives said, "Oh, what's in these crates?" And they opened it up for the congressmen's wives, and they were horrified, and the congressmen's wives put an end to the Philippine Wars. So the two boys spent 20 years in the army, and when they got out, retired, they gingerly went back to the Texas Panhandle area to visit their old friends. And innocently enough, they would see their old friends and they'd say, "Oh, how's your father?" "Oh, he died in the range wars. Didn't you hear?" "No, I didn't hear a thing." So they knew they got away with it clean. Anyway, so.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting history.
So it answers a couple of questions, It answers what the true story is about the range wars, but it also it amplifies the question of, the U.S. government is no cleaner than any other government. We have a lot of blood on our hands. With the Philippine Wars, what we did to the Southerners, what we did to the Plains Indians, even there was even a thing called the Mexican War, where in the cowboy days, when the president sent troops down into Mexico to kick ass and take names. So much, and it was so abusive and horrible that the Mexicans started calling us gringos, which was short for green coats.
I've heard that name, yeah.
Green coats.
Green coats.
That's what they were saying. They called us green coats, which was the military uniform. And the wars just never stop. We go into Korea. Why? Who the hell knows why we were in Korea? We don't even have a good story about why we were in Korea. The only thing we have is MASH, the TV show MASH.
That's right. And
even
what's
they
that?
didn't know why they were there. And then we have Vietnam. Who the hell knows why we were in Vietnam? The only thing you can conclude about the Vietnam War was that it was a war over heroin and poppy plants.
Yep.
And they say it was about, stopping the dominoes of communism from taking over the East. What the hell? There was 50,000 Americans dead. A lot
Yeah.
of Agent Orange sprayed everywhere to defoliate the country. And what, 1 million, 2 million Vietnamese people died? Women, children? We don't have a good track record of nobleness. Every government, as Anthony said, I think it was Anthony,
Yeah.
every government is a useless organization, bloodletting.
Yeah.
Except for the government of Uruguay. Have you ever heard of them?
Uruguay.
Yeah.
I've heard of the country, but I don't know about the government of the country.
That's good news. That means there's no dead bodies to report on. So we like Uruguay. We like Peru. They don't bother anybody. So you want a government that's too broke to go tune up the world.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Whoever heard of
It's all about stealing resources, isn't it? It's all
Exactly.
about having control over resources, whether it's oil, heroin, as you say,
or bananas.
banana republics.
Right. And so the reason the president scooted out and left all the people behind, because he knew there's going to be some bloodletting when they come back. And it wouldn't be just, I don't think the Taliban will kill everybody, just probably the people who deserve it.
Oh, but
The bloodletting,
only the people who deserve it.
yeah, the
That's
bloodletting goes to the,
terrible.
yeah, whatever. I don't know anything about Afghanistan, except that every country, every empire that goes into Afghanistan gets their ass kicked. That's
Yeah, Russia. Was it the 80s? The Russians tried it.
the British in the 1800s got their ass
Yes,
kicked.
that's right. Yep.
Alexander the Great got his ass kicked in Afghanistan.
It used to be the hippie trail, didn't it? People used to go and get these Afghan coats, the hippies in the 60s. There was I was watching the news, the British news about Afghanistan, and they had a photograph of a woman walking in the street of Kabul, and that was taken in the 1960s. And they were dressed like Western women. They had the short skirts, long hair. It could have been a photograph of, women walking in any American or British capital. And then they juxtaposed it with a photo of women now, and they're totally covered up in burqas. And they're not allowed to go out on the streets unless they're accompanied by their husbands or they've got permission to be out. I don't understand why men fear women so much that they've got to hide them away and punish them. But it's been like that throughout history. It started off with the witch burnings in Europe.
Well, women don't have a better track record. When you put women in charge, they don't have any better track record than men.
Men have always had access to education. Women haven't. Women have had to fight to have the right to be educated. You can't deny that women have been treated as second-class citizens.
Well, Cleopatra had a lot of blood on her hands.
Yeah, you're
Bloody Mary.
naming one or two individuals,
Bloody
but
Mary had a lot of.
that doesn't negate history or what's
Janet
happened.
Reno had a lot of blood on her hands.
That doesn't negate what's happened to women in the world throughout history. naming an individual like Cleopatra doesn't negate what I'm saying about what's happened to women throughout history, how badly women have been treated throughout history.
Men have been treated badly too.
Not to the same extent as women. As I say, men in Western civilizations have always had access to education, have always been allowed to have a vote, have always been allowed to enter universities. Women have been treated really badly throughout history.
Well,
The
ain't that
Bible
the truth?
condemns women.
It does.
That's why I'm against the Bible.
You are, huh?
Yeah. It's too full of contradictions, loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
It's another part of the power structure.
Are you going to write your own Bible? Maybe we'll start a movement here.
I don't need to write my own Bible. There is a feminist movement.
Uh-huh.
There are loads of books and written on the subject.
What do you think is the best feminist book out there?
I don't know. I'm not saying I'm a feminist,
Oh, really?
but I'm leaning towards that. I just see the inequalities that are happening today.
Mm-hmm. So, you got
Just to answer a question in the chat from Chain Wild Eden, is there a God? I'm an atheist. I don't believe there's a God or a creator.
Do you think God believes in you?
Of course not. There's no such thing as a God.
Okay. Okay, so back to feminism. What's your favorite feminist slogan?
As I say, I'm not a feminist. I'm not a political person. These are just my observations of what is happening in the world today. How women are pushed down, they're hidden,
Mm-hmm.
and men applaud it.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, why are men so afraid of women that throughout history women have had to fight to get an education, and today women's place is supposed to be in the kitchen or whatever?
Are you kidding?
And you see what's happening in Afghanistan.
Well, you're looking at Afghanistan, but that's not the world.
Islam's getting to be a larger and larger part of the world, and Christianity isn't that much better than Islam when it comes to women's rights.
Well,
In my opinion, this is
I don't
my
know what
opinion.
Christianity, how you define that, but I don't know if you've been keeping up with current events, but there are...
Wasn't it Paul who said that women should be silent? Isn't that in the Bible?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, why should women be silent? Why should women not have a voice?
I can tell you, but I won't tell you. So let's go on to this.
Oh, tell me, please. I'm interested. I'm interested to know why Christian males believe that women should be silent.
No, I can't answer that question. I can only answer the other question.
What was the other question? I've forgotten.
Why did
Paul? Yes, Paul. Yeah, Paul.
Why did he say women should be silent in the church?
Yeah.
So I can't answer the other question about men in general. I can only address this
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it's a different, narrower view.
Yeah, sure.
You're on this show right now, and I'm not making you be silent.
No, I appreciate that. And
that's notable.
Thank you. It is notable, and it's very unusual.
But we had the free will chick on this show weeks ago.
I'm not sure who that is.
It doesn't matter who she is.
I've come across.
It doesn't matter who she is. But we had her on this show, and she was obnoxious and would not shut up. And I had to, turn her mic off because she was full of herself and full of self-righteous pride.
But
And
aren't a lot of men like that?
of course, and I do the same to them. I turn their mic off, kick them out of the room. So you're asking, do you want specifics or vague generalizations? We could go either way.
I'm just interested. I'm reading the chat as well. Because Jane said women should be silent in a certain context. I'm genuinely interested in the Christian view of.
I can't give you the
Why?
Christian view, but I can give you
Okay.
Paul's view, because Paul was
That's
not.
fine. Yes, I did mention Paul. Yeah, go ahead.
Because
Go
Paul
ahead.
is not a Christian.
Paul's not a Christian.
No, not in the modern day sense of
Now
evangelical.
I'm confused.
The Christians hate Paul. They hate him with a passion. And so, so the reason Paul said that women should be silent in the church is because of their tendency to run down rabbit holes and miss the point and get off track. And we had this experience when the Free Will Chick was on this channel with us talking, and she would do this, right? She would run down rabbit holes and get off track, and it was a painful hour. It was like talking to somebody who didn't have the ability to understand what the conversation was, but just wanted to keep talking because she liked the sound of her own voice.
But a lot of men are the same.
You're asking, see, you're doing this. Do you want to know what my reaction is on a narrow question, or do you want to talk in vague generalizations? Yes, men do it too.
Yes, I'm waiting.
And I have kicked men off this channel too.
Okay,
for doing the same damn thing.
Let me know about Paul. Let me know about Paul.
Paul says that he doesn't allow women to speak in the church because of this very reason. They tend to be gossips. That's what he said. And meddlers. That's what he said. And so I tend to agree.
Paul was a misogynist.
Yes, he hated women as much as women hate each other. Women
don't hate each other. Women don't hate each other as any more than men hate each other. That is a fallacy.
You don't get out much, do you?
Now, that is an ad hom.
What?
You don't know anything about my life. I work full time. Ace, don't. You're laughing at me now. You're mocking me now.
I'm laughing with you. You're here because you got the floor as much as I do. So
I've got a lot of life experience.
I've met a lot of women that hate other women.
You've met how many women have you met? Try and quantify this, that hate other women. Because I don't believe you, Ace. I'm sorry. I don't believe that statement. I think it's an excuse.
An excuse to what?
And men gossip as much as women.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
Men love to gossip. You just have to watch YouTube.
You're right. Gossip is so much fun. So, so here you are. You're in our little ecclesia called ACO. What message would you like to preach?
I've just been saying that there's a lot of misogyny in the Christian faith. And I don't understand why men fear women so much, to have to persecute them so much through history, and it still happens today.
Well, I don't know if you've been keeping up with current events, but if you check over in the records of the United States, we have more women in college right now than we do men.
But they had to fight for that.
At the moment, we have more women.
They had to fight for that in this country as well. They had to fight for the right to vote.
What are we getting for our money's worth when all these women are in college and have degrees
I'm getting a lot of support in the chat from women that say that women don't hate women. New Genesis doesn't agree that women hate women. Lisa doesn't agree that women hate each other. So that's a total untruth, Ace. I'm sorry. I have to call you out on that one. It's a myth.
A total untruth.
Yeah, total untruth. I have to call you out on that one. I'm sorry.
All right.
I don't agree with you on that one.
Okay. So
Paul was wrong.
So is that so?
Yep.
She said women don't hate women. Isn't that a vague generalization? Because I know I have met dozens of women who hate.
Ace, you're the person who's just made the generalization that women hate women. So don't say to me that I'm generalizing. Women don't hate women any more than men hate men.
All right. Right. It is a vague generalization, right? So.
It's not true.
So if we put women in charge of the world, what will we get? A different world. Buttercups and rainbows.
You're asking me to make a prediction. I don't know. I'm just pointing out the historical fact that you can check anywhere that women have been persecuted throughout history, and a lot of the blame behind that is religious zealots, particularly the Christians, and we see it today in Islam, the Taliban, ISIS.
So what woman should we put in charge of the world? Hillary Clinton, Janet Reno.
Scotland has a female First Minister who's doing a grand job.
Oh, that's nice.
So we're going to have to agree to disagree.
I don't even know that we're disagreeing. We're just thinking aloud, right? It is a fact that there are more women in U.S. colleges at the moment than there are men.
I don't know a lot about US statistics, to be fair, but I don't see any problem with that.
I didn't say there was a problem.
There's no problem in getting an education.
I thought you said there was.
There might be well, women have been prevented from getting an education. That's been the problem.
And what exactly is an education?
Education is a systematic exploration of reality through scientific methods and philosophy. It's a move away from superstition. It's a move away from the persecution of minority groups based on superstition. It's a move towards equality. It's a move towards self-liberation. And you think that's funny?
Good luck with that.
You think that's funny, Ace?
I do.
You think education's funny? I don't think Christians are great with education.
Listen, I myself went to college, and I felt they were inhibiting my education, and I couldn't wait to get out of college. And I didn't start learning and reading and devouring knowledge until college got out of me. And I discovered that when I wanted to quit college, I had to fill out more paperwork to quit than I had to get into college.
When I say education, I'm speaking in a broader term.
No, I thought you were talking about college.
No, I didn't mention the word college.
Well,
I'm talking about education. I mean, people can self-educate themselves. People can go to libraries, access research online.
And why?
People can do their own research.
Why don't they do that?
They do.
Who's
saying they don't do that?
Do you have a library?
Of course, I've got a library.
What's your favorite book?
Well, actually, the book I'm reading at the moment, you might find quite interesting. It's a fiction book. It's by a Scottish author, and it's called The Testament of Gideon Mark. And it's a story about a Scottish minister who lost his faith but still carried on in his ministry. He was an adulterer, he drank, etc., etc. And I haven't finished the book yet, but the synopsis is he gets lost in the countryside somewhere, he falls into a gorge, and he goes underground, and he ends up being rescued by the devil. But I don't know if that makes him believe in God. I haven't got to the end of the book. But to answer your question, that's the book I'm reading at the moment.
Well, what's your favorite book that you've read, say, 6 times?
I don't think I've ever read a book 6 times.
How about the book you've read twice?
I don't know. I can't think of a book I've read twice, to be honest.
What is the most important book you've ever read?
Certainly not the Bible.
What is the most important book you've ever read?
I would say the most important books I've ever read were scientific books, books about evolution, books about biology, books about geology, paleontology. I do actually have a university education. I've got a BA honours degree in business studies. So those were important books. I would say books about science, books about genetics. I've studied biology and genetics. I've got a basic understanding of evolution and how it works. I'm fascinated by geology. I look at that Icelandic volcano every day to see how it's getting on.
Are there any
Now,
books that
if you want to, I've got loads of books. I've got loads of bookshelves. Do you want me to
I
go
didn't
through
finish
them
my
all?
I didn't finish my sentence, but do you
Sorry.
have any books that you have recommended to people with enthusiasm?
No.
So none of the books that you have read, you have recommended with enthusiasm.
Sorry?
So none of the books have
Well,
impressed you.
I might recommend this one, the one I'm speaking about, The Testament of Gideon Mark. I might recommend that one. I've just started it, but it looks very good. Overwhelmingly compassionate and thought-provoking. Demands another read. So I might read this one twice. I'll let you know. Hugely enjoyable, very funny, deeply refreshing. Its touch of devilry makes it even more of a joy.
So let me ask you another question. On this theme, why was the book 50 Shades of Grey so popular with women?
No idea. I've never read it. I've never been interested in reading it.
Do you know the plot?
Are you going to tell me?
I wouldn't dare do that. I'd be accused.
I'm not accusing you. Go on.
Do you know the plot of it?
I've heard people talking about it, yeah. Nobody talks about it now, so I think it was a thing of its time. I think people joked about it more than anything.
It was very popular. Have you ever
So was
heard
The
of
Lord of the Rings. Now there's a good book I would recommend. Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I used to devour a lot of science fiction when I was younger. Used to love science fiction. I liked books about ideas.
You ever heard of the book called Like Water for Chocolate?
I've heard of it, yes.
I've never read it, but my wife of 25 years ago was reading it, and she was so excited about it. Wouldn't stop talking about it for a bit. I said, "What's it about?" And she said, "Oh, this guy falls in love with a woman, and he can't marry her for logistical reasons, so he marries her sister so that he can have access to her. It's so romantic." And
That sounds terrible.
I said, "Let me get this straight. If I married you because I wanted to diddle your sister, that would be so romantic." And
That would be terrible.
she had a deer in the headlight look and never brought it up again.
Oh, I have heard of the book. It was quite popular in the book clubs. You know, I used to go to book clubs where you'd all agree to read a book and you'd all discuss it. I think that was one of the recommendations, but I didn't read that one.
Why would she be so excited about this book
Well,
and not see what I saw?
I guess it's like a romantic fantasy, maybe. There is a market for that, for males and females. I'm not a romantic person at all.
I love you.
Oh. Even after everything I've said on this stream.
Yeah. You're just a goofball.
Yeah, that's true. An Americans told me, what was the word? I've forgotten now.
Quirky?
No, it was a word like that. She's a hoot. That was it. A hoot.
So I'll repeat it. So, like water for chocolate, this guy falls in love with a woman, can't marry her, so he marries her sister.
Yeah, I think that's
just
terrible.
so he can have
situation.
access to her. And oh, it's such a romantic book.
Well, for one thing, it's totally dishonest, isn't it, of the guy?
Why would she fall for that? Why would she?
The woman he married.
Yeah.
Why would she fall for it? He must have been quite duplicitous. Is that the right word?
So on the book 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
As I understand the plot line of that.
You should have had that in your stream title and you would have got hundreds of views. Ace and Wildie didn't review 50 Shades of Grey.
So as I understand the plot line of that, this woman falls for a man who's very wealthy, a bazillionaire. And he's got this really dark side and does very evil things. But she's
BDSM.
so in love with him. Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I didn't read the book. I don't know anything. But from what I understand, if the same guy had lived in a trailer park, you know, the FBI would be looking for him.
Yeah. I think it's a silly story. It sounds like a silly story to me.
Why? Why would it be so popular with women? But women have this education. They can read now.
Well, guess what? Now, I don't know if this is true, but what I've heard quoted, that one of the most requested books in prisons, male prisons, was 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So men are sneaky. Men are very sneaky. They love things like 50 Shades of Grey, but they pretend they're women. Do you think it was just? I know there was a movie They made it into a movie. I don't know if there was 2 movies or if it was just 1 movie. But I'm sure it wasn't just all women in the audience. You know, sex is a very powerful thing. Sex and death, very powerful motivators
Mhm.
in all walks of life. Literature, the arts, religion.
So there.
Sorry, were you making a point about 50 Shades of Grey? Why do women, I hope you're not saying that women really want to be submissive, and I hope that's not the point you were wanting to make.
I have no point. I'm pointless.
You're not pointless, Ace. You're not pointless. You have a very good channel here. You're very valuable channel, I would say, in YouTube. You're very respectful to people. It's a good channel to be on. I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of people, but yet you invite me onto your stream to talk my own rubbish about various topics, and I do appreciate it. No, I wish your channel all the best, and I hope it grows.
Well, thank you.
It's a very, I would say, if I knew Christians, I would direct them to your channel. Well, I do know Christians, I say if I knew Christians, but I would recommend your channel to people. Because you seem to welcome debates and ideas, and I think that's very valuable. So I applaud what you're doing here, Ace.
Thank you.
And I think it's quite valuable. I'm an atheist myself, but you know, I still appreciate the conversations and explorations of topics.
Excuse me just for a moment, so I can address something in the chat. Respect APA. We started out by talking about the GAPS diet, and the GAPS diet is, among other things it does, apparently it helps a lot of autistic kids get their health and abilities and mind back together. And so here on this page here, it's foods to avoid and foods recommended. And GAPS stands for something about gut something. I don't know. Somebody put it in here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you heal the gut, you heal a lot of the rest of you also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
would agree with that. Yeah.
So Respect APA is late coming in to the discussion. So I just wanted to bring him up to speed. And then somehow we got Wild Eden on here, and we're talking about history, evil governments, democracies,
women's rights,
and why women are not ruling the world yet.
Women aren't ruling the world because they like reading 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes, good point. We'll get a lot of thumbs up on that one.
Well, it might be better than reading. No, I better not say that. I won't say what I was going to say.
So, so as far as women ruling the world, we have examples of what happens when women are in positions of power, like Bloody Mary. You ever heard of Bloody Mary? And Cleopatra, she even killed her own brothers and sisters in order to arrive at the status of the Queen of Egypt. We have.
What about King Henry VIII, who beheaded his wives?
That's right. So you can.
Men.
So I would say there's no difference. There's no difference. They're all bloody.
Okay. True.
And we have in this country.
Power. What is the saying?
We have a
power corrupts.
And yeah, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we have in this country plenty of people who have spoken out negatively about the Clintons and ended up committing suicide. I mean, something like 80 or 100 people who've committed suicide with 7 bullet holes in their head, and it was actually ruled a suicide for having dirt on the Clintons. And we have Janet Reno. Janet, that's a female name, right? So she was in charge of the butcher at Waco when 70, 80 women, men, and children were burned alive by the FBI and the ATF. So there's no difference. There's a lot of bloodletting going on both sides of the aisle. What is this? Which 2 colors? We're talking about 50 Shades of Grey, David James.
Yeah,
2
they're
shades of
discussing.
gray. 2 shades of gray. No, 50 Shades of Grey. Just kidding. I don't know what's going on in the chat bar, but
I think New Genesis is pointing out that men have 2 colors for all occasions. 50 Shades of Grey.
okay. Anyway, so we'll wind up the show, and I'll remind you to check out the GAPS diet because there's a lot of healing that goes on in this GAPS diet. If it can heal autistic kids,
and there's a lot of alcohol as well. They've got vodka, wine, dry red or white. I don't know if that is very healing for children, but
all
there
right,
you go.
But if it heals autistic kids, then it'll probably heal you up of whatever things are bugging you, whether it's arthritis or cancer or I have learned in the years gone by that cancer loves sugar, and cancer hates fats.
Interesting.
It just absolutely hates fats, like bacon and avocado. I have learned in recent years that the brain is made mostly of fats. And so it would make sense that a lot of women who are on a low-fat diet also have to take serotonin reuptake inhibitor pills and depression pills because they're not getting the fats. They have a low-fat diet, and so they're depressed. And from my observation, the women who eat fats, like haggis, they have a more sensible brain than those women I've met who are on low-fat diets. And it turns out that the low-fat diet
fat is
women,
important for your brain. Oils and fat are important for your brain. Oily fish is supposed to be very good for you. Fish like tuna and salmon and herring.
Right. And so it turns out that I believe all the women I've met who are on low-fat diets, they're all fat.
Yeah, diet seems to have the opposite effect sometimes. It's a very difficult one.
But this GAPS diet relies a lot on fats. So you will probably lose weight. Anyway.
I think if people aim for health rather than weight loss per se, it might be better for them.
Amen. God bless you, Wild Eden. You know, there was an Eden in the Bible.
I chose the name Eden because there's a lot of place names round about where I am that has the word Eden in it. We've got Eden Gate, we've got River Eden, we've got all sorts of Edens. So maybe the Garden of Eden used to be in Scotland. I like the idea of the garden being abandoned and growing wild, and that was my idea with my name anyway.
Yeah, it's obvious you're a wild woman.
A wilding from the north. That's why the Romans built a wall. to keep us northerners out.
Okay. Exit stage right.
Thank you, Ace.
Thank you for joining me, dear.
Thank you, people in the chat.
Uh-oh. Some last words here from Jeremy. Howdy, boy.
That was wild. I'm glad I followed my instincts. I stayed out. There was a time there I was going to put in chat, am I the only one that feels like all of us riding on this plane has made it through the canyon of feminism and the chauvinist valley turbulence? We all can take a big, deep breath. Man, that's great.
Yeah. I was quite disturbed by what's happening in Afghanistan. I think that's what kicked it all off for me. I'm not a staunch feminist. I don't know a lot about the movement. It's just through sort of my experiences on YouTube, I guess.
Sure.
And yeah, what's happening to women in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's all messed up, but we got to have trust and faith that it's messed up on purpose for a reason. It's not, the creator going back with a dustpan, cleaning up after accidents that he didn't anticipate and creating new plans for, the things that we've done that have thrown him off course to where he has to scratch his head. It's all going to end up in a glorious, and men and women will end up treating, each other the right way, with the respect and with the love and with the honor. All of those scales are, in my opinion, are vastly, grossly off in each direction. And just whatever political party can grab either side of those horns for power and control of people, they grab it.
Yeah.
And it's in all the media.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
That's why I think if you just listen to what Paul says and just be quiet, you would just be okay.
I know I have gone off in a bit of a rant. I do admit I've ranted a bit today. I don't know why.
No, it's fine. Yeah,
it must have been what I ate for my tea.
No, it's fine. No, that's good. That's what I like about this place. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents. Nice seeing you all. Nice seeing you, Eden. Interesting.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thanks, Ace.
Thank you, Ace.
Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.
Grace to you all. You're a bunch of good eggs. Not rotten eggs.